I've made myself a very tight schedule to get my chill exploration game The Lost Explorer from this to all of this, but was my schedule too tight? And will I be able to get the game in a good state before Steam Next Fest in February? Unfortunately, I don't know yet, but here's what I've been doing in the past few months. I knew for a long time that I wanted to have caves in the game, because who doesn't love caves? At first, I wasn't sure what the best approach would be to make them. In the end, I decided to do it procedurally because I'm lazy. So after a ton of programming, I can place a spline and generate a cave wherever I want. Now comes the second problem with caves. Most of them are underground, meaning I need to cut holes in the landscape. This should be really easy, I can just delete one of the landscape chunks. Oh, I'm not planning on adding sandworms to my game, so this hole seems to be a bit too big for my purpose. Alright, so because I seem to be awful at planning stuff ahead of time, I made the landscape have really large chunks, and there isn't really anything I can do about it now. So instead, I'm gonna fake it. I'll make small parts of the landscape invisible, and when the player is close to the cave entrance, I'll turn collision off so the player can pass through. Just as I like it, unnecessarily complicated. I also improved the cliffs, but I really hated working on these, because I had to spend hours just manually tweaking them to make them look okay and to fix clipping. So I'm gonna skip this part because I can feel my will to live start fading again. Alright, this next part was pretty fun. The town. I made a bunch of parts for houses in Blender and programmed an adjustable hang bridge and platform in Unreal Engine. Using this stuff, I started making the town, starting at the bottom and working my way up. This is normally where I would explain why I designed it the way I did and show any concept art or blockouts I made prior, but I can't. Because I'm completely winging it. Nevertheless, I was pretty happy with this, but felt that it was missing something to make it stand out and look more interesting. So I added just a little bit of glow to the leaves, combined with a couple of point lights, and it's looking a lot better in my opinion. Pause just a second. If the game interests you, please go wishlist it, link is in the description because I could really use your support. Alright, back to the video. Part of the reason I designed the island like this is because I wanted to add a hang gliding minigame. I know it's called hang gliding, but from here on out I'm gonna call it paragliding because it sounds way cooler. I tried a few different ways of programming the movement before finding something I was happy with that had a good balance of speed, maneuverability and momentum. The key to getting it to feel good was really just to preserve the momentum the player had. I already made a paraglider model a while back, so now I just have to make a simple shader animation for the wind. I love shader animations. Anyway, from here it was smooth sailing, or gliding I guess. I made a system so you can either use the paraglider freely or play a minigame where you get a score based on how fast and precisely you can pass through all hoops. Next, campfires. I started with the visuals, the fire itself of course, the light from the fire, burning embers, smoke and burning wood. I'm actually not sure what the name for this is. You know, not the fire itself but the glow from the really hot wood. Is there even a name for it? Anyway, I'm getting off track. All these effects combine to create this fire, with a simple option to adjust the effects to make the fire more or less intense. But that was the easy part. Next, I started programming the fire. Most of it was relatively simple. Player interacts and lights the fire, moves to the right location and sits down. And as a little bonus detail, I made the fire gradually die down until the player either throws a new branch in the fire or pokes it. That's how fire works, right? Once all of that was done, I programmed the fire mechanics. The fires will be useful for fast travel and setting the time of day. I'll let you guess which part of the fire was most annoying, the fire effects, animations, or gameplay mechanics. Wrong. Making the player able to look around while at the same time being able to navigate the simple menu proved to be very annoying. Let's move on. As you might know, the game has a bunch of wreckage the player can photograph to learn more about what happened before they woke up. Unfortunately, this just isn't enough to really tell the story. So I decided to create black boxes. You know, those things in airplanes and stuff that record and save a bunch of data. Yeah, like that, except almost completely different. Small computers containing data from the spaceship that the player can recover. Each one only has a small amount of data, so the player will have to recover them all to get as much data as possible. First I designed the black box in Blender. Then textured it in Substance, and finally animated it in Unreal Engine. Now there's a problem. I of course want the screen to display text, but I wasn't sure how to do this. First I thought of using a widget, but this turned out to be an absolute nightmare that I don't want to talk about. So instead I just decided to add text in front of the screen. It's impossible to see that the text is a separate mesh in-game, but this just made it easier to work with. While programming the black box, I also made the loading on startup hitch for that extra level of realism. Alright, one of the last things to add is a racing minigame. I wanted this to be a combination of different rideable creatures. I made it so one of the player's companions can be waiting on the player halfway through the race. Like for example this race, you start with a short part you just have to run, then you switch to your Atorix companion, and finally finish the race underwater. I think that's all. Oh wait, I almost forgot about the new small creatures. These are still entirely made with Niagara particle systems and animated with shader displacement. I added 3 new ones. The definitely not jellyfish, which I spent some extra time making sure their movement was correct with their animations. These flying creatures. And some totally unimportant glowing fish. There's something special about some of these small creatures. That's all I'll say for now. Finally, with all these new systems working, I just had to add them all to the game. I added the new quests and minigames, the campfires, the black boxes, small creatures and more. I did a lot more that I won't really go over because it isn't as interesting. Like improving performance, fixing tons and tons of bugs, and of course, a bunch of quality of life improvements. I still have a lot of bugs to fix before next fest, but that's it for now. I hope you liked the video. If the game interests you, consider wishlisting it on Steam and could really use the support. You can also join the Discord to playtest if you want, or subscribe. Bye.